And we need to have some education reform. If you're going to come to this country, great. And if you're going to try to participate in our system, great. Number one, learn English. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, just, hey, when I go to foreign countries, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Europe, I try to speak their language. I really do, because I'm a guest. And I want to, I want to try to be a courteous guest. I don't go there and demand that they speak my language. And I'll go to Mexico and demand that they teach my children for free in English instead of Spanish. Come on. That we need to teach critical thinking over recitation of dates and places. And this is what's been bred out of the education system, thanks to the Rockefellers and the Richfords, who have created through the University of Chicago and other places, and the General Education Board, which is now turned into the National Education Association, and now they've locked up the socialists in the federal government, and they're trying to tell us now, here's how you teach people, no child left behind. What a socialist program that is. And again, what it is it's not bringing kids up, it's dragging kids down. All right, and now we got a dumbed down, drugged out zombie society. Slide. I say restore the Pledge of Allegiance. I always thought that was kind of dumb when I was in school, but you know what? Every day when you get up and you pledge allegiance to the United States, one nation under God, independent, with liberty, and pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands. See? But they don't have to do that anymore. They don't even understand what a republic is. Slide. No secret society members need apply. Any person who has any membership in any secretive organization such as this Council on Foreign Relations, they should be barred from holding public office. You want to have secret meetings and have secret things going on, okay, that's fine, that's your right, but then you shouldn't go up there and represent the public, because how do we know that your secret oaths don't supersede your oaths to the public? And I think we can see from example that they do. Slide. We need to do away with the Patriot Act. Nobody ever read it anyway. All right, and I'm not even going to go through there. The whole thing is just incredible. You realize librarians can be prosecuted if they tell you that the feds have been in looking at your library records. What is that? This is a free country? Give me a break. Do away with this fascist stuff. Slide. No more cover-up commissions. Warren Commission, which now everybody knows is wrong, and now the 9/11 omission report. Nobody knows that one's wrong just yet, but it's coming. Some of you older folks may recall, for 15 years after the Kennedy assassination, it was just considered impolite to even bring it up and discuss it in decent company. We just don't talk about that. And then all of a sudden, the House Complaint Committee came up, and all the revelations came out about the CIA and assassination plots and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden it became at least respectable to discuss it, and then the lid blew off, and by now the polls show nobody believes the Warren Commission anymore. Well, folks, next year is the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Let's don't wait another 40 years to find out the truth. Let's demand the truth now so we can find out what happened to our fellow citizens and try to get something back on track. Slide. The way to do it, obviously, is if you have a national treasury like the 9/11 Commission, they should have formed a committee of a cross-section of American society. They should have got some building engineers, pilots. They should have gotten people from various areas of the country, some academics, some journalists, put them on a panel and give them free rein to find out what really happened. But of course, if it did that, we might find out the truth. So we're stuck with Warren Commissions, hand-picked Warren Commission, hand-picked 9/11 Commission. Don't let them get away with that. Slide. Enforce the 10th Amendment. And this is beginning to happen. This is just like told you about the district attorney says he's going to prosecute the TSA. It can happen. Under the 10th Amendment, it said powers delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So how do they get away with what they're doing? All right? Let me tell you how bad it's getting. In Tennessee, the state legislature passed a law that said if you own a firearm in the state of Tennessee and you don't take it outside the state, then you are exempt from federal firearms laws and regulations. Because the only way that the federal government has gotten its foot in the door on firearms regulation is through the commerce clause. Well, take it across state lines, so that gives us right to do something. Well, if you're going to take it across the state line, then they got no business. And what happened? The gun dealers going, gee, what we can do about this? So they all wrote to the head of the BATF and said, what about this? And I've got a copy of his letter, and after he goes blah, 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 he states, you will ignore the state law. That's where we are, folks.
Well, didn't they use that in the healthcare, the commerce clause also, the healthcare bill?
Yes. Commerce clause is the basis of the healthcare bill. Same deal. Told you, just say no. There's more of us than there are of them. Another good example. You might recall in 2005 they passed the Real ID Act. They said by 2008 everybody's got to have a federally approved identification. All right? Well, 2008 came and 16 or so states said, man, we really can't do this. It wasn't out of any libertarian, idealism. It was because they said, well, you tell us we got to do this, but you're not giving us the money to do it.
Yeah, give us the money.
We don't have the money to do that, So they said, well, all right, so we'll put it off till 2009. Well, 2009 came in. Still, more states said, well, I don't think we're going to do this. Here it is, 2010, and that law that was enacted in 2005 is still not in effect. And in fact, Napolitano has said, well, we're going to see if we can figure out a way to, in other words, they'll come up with the same thing, but it working because too many people said, no, we're not going to do that. That's the solution. We don't have to get in the street and fight. We don't have to kill anybody.
Just say no.
Just say no. I hate to paraphrase Nancy Reagan, but just say no. Say, no, we're not going to do that. Go to the airport and they say, take off your shit. And no, I ain't going to do that. I know. That's the problem. Well, here's my experience. I flew a year ago. I flew back from Egypt, went through Cairo Airport, came through Charles de Gaulle in Paris, and then landed in New York, and then had to change terminals to get a domestic flight to get back to Dallas. So I go in the domestic flight there at JFK, and a little black woman says, "Take off your shoes." I said, I knew better than be ugly, because then, they make you miss your flight, throw you in a room, leave you there for 10 years. I said, ma'am, let me ask you something. I said, I just came through Cairo Airport and Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, and I said, two of the most security-conscious airports in the world. I said, they didn't make me take off my shoes. Why am I have to take off my shoes when I come back here to my own home country, the land of the free, home of the brave? And she says, because you're in New Jersey. Excuse me. That's the level we are. That's where we are. Hey, starting with the Munich Massacre of 1972, coming up to Kobar Towers, coming up to the Marine Barracks in Beirut, coming up to the Cole, coming up to 9/11, young Arab males. Okay? Young Arab males. But you can't stop them at the airport because that's racial profiling. So they stop me. They stop an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair. They pat down a 2-year-old kid. Folks, this is insane. This is insane. They don't have that problem in Israel. And Israel's surrounded by these Arab terrorists, okay? They don't have any problems over there. Why? Because if you're a young Arab male and you want to fly into or out of Israel, you better go to the airport 3 hours ahead of time, because they're going to run you through the ringer. But they don't have any problem. And if we went over there as tourists, we just walk in, walk out. I know, I've done it. Slide. Uphold the E.P.I.C Act. Most of you don't even know what that is. All right, and right after Civil War, about 1870, they passed, because of the deprivations done by the military and martial law authorities in the South. Everybody just finally got disgusted, and they passed the E.P.I.C Act, which says the U.S. military cannot be used to police the civilian population of the United States, which is only common sense. Anything less than that, you're setting yourself up for a military dictatorship. And yet, what happens, 9/11, there's troops at the airport. There's troops on the border. Oh, drug war, drug war. They have just systematically ignored the Posse Comitatus Act. That church down in Waco, they kill all those people and burned it up.
Yeah.
And who did that? The military.
Plowed it up.
Flame-throwing tanks. And why? How did they justify that? Because they said they had drugs. So in the drug clause, they bypassed the Posse Comitatus Act and they kill those people that bulldoze and burn their homes and their church. Okay, all in the name of war on drugs. And did they ever find any drugs? No.
They did it for the children that they just tear gassed about 30 minutes.
That's right.
All that
Slide.
long.
Slide. Remember when the police officers wore blue and they were our friends? And if you had a problem, you'd go and find a police officer. That was what I was always taught. And I noticed something, even with my own kids, 15 years ago or more. Look out, Daddy, there's a cop. Where did this attitude come from? It came because, did we change or did the cops change? Now it's, step out, put your hands up, assume the position. You're guilty until proven innocent. And part of that comes because now they can confiscate. This is how insane it is, folks. If you have a teenage son or daughter and he comes over to your house and he brings a few friends and one of them leaves a marijuana joint behind, and for the sake of argument, the DEA runs into your house and they find that joint, they take your house. They take your house. They confiscate it because you're presumed to have got it with drug things. And don't think that's ridiculous. It's happened. And it is happening. But now here's how ridiculous it is. If your son or daughter goes up to a Hilton hotel and rents a room, invites his friends up, they leave some pot lying around there, do they confiscate the Hilton hotel?
Workers confiscating the smoke.
That's right.
Southern California.
But when you give the police the right to say, we just picture you some poor old sheriff in some poor county, and you all your life you've been dreaming of a bass boat, and this gentleman right here has got a nice looking bass boat. How tempting is it to say, gee, looky here, I found some cocaine. Now I got me a bass boat. It's wrong, folks, it's just wrong. There should be no confiscation until there's been a conviction in a court of law. That's just common sense. But it's not happening. They're just taking it. And now, more and more prisons are run by private companies. Well, now, what do you think their imperative is going to be? To rehabilitate those people or to get more people in jail? We're zombies. We're nuts. Slide. Number one, we can stop a lot of this nonsense by simply decriminalizing drugs, okay?
Yes.
All right, it's that simple. One of my high school friends ended up being the chief counsel for the Texas prison system. She told me about 90 to 95% of the people in the Texas prison system are in there on drug offenses. Now, let me tell you how crazy it is. In California, see, they got real big on with Reagan. Drugs. So they had passed 3 strikes, okay? If you get 3 convictions on drugs, you're in for good. You can't get out. No probation. So the prisons fill up with these drug offenders, and yet they're overcrowded. They got to let somebody go, so they let them go. The rapists and the murderers. Because that's the only ones they can let go because of our insane drug laws. Wake up, people. What's wrong? We're just zombies, I'm telling you. And believe me, if we just legalize pot, for example, and make, and they have, by the way, this is how stupid it is. This summer I went up and visited in Colorado. They took me over to visit some friends. This guy showed me his little card. He's got a medical marijuana card. And he can go down, the doctor signed it, he can go down to the store. He goes down there and he can Panamanian, Maroon, Hawaiian, Bondo. That's not bad. He can pick all this up. He just gets on time his mind as long as he's not driving. Nobody cares. He's not causing any problem. And state's making money. Everybody's happy. But if I take one of his cigarettes and I bring it back here to Texas, I go up for 20 years. How insane is that? How much in contradiction to our Constitution that says no cruel, unusual, or unjust punishments? Do you realize George Herbert Walker Bush owes his life to him? Because when he bailed out of that airplane in World War II, if he hadn't had those hemp cords on his parachute, he'd have been a dead duck.
Yeah.
And during World War II, they were paying U.S. farmers to grow hemp. Do you realize today, in 2010, it is illegal to grow industrial hemp in the United States? We are importing our industrial hemp. Now, how insane is that? Hemp, which has been one of the most stable crops, one of the most versatile crops in the history of the world, and we can't grow it in this country. We're zombies. We're just a bunch of idiots. Get rid of hate crime laws. Come on, you know. Number one, it's easy for me to say because I've taken pretty good stock of myself, and I don't know how to explain this, but I don't hate anybody or anything. Obviously, there's some things and some people that I prefer over others, but I don't hate anybody. But this idea of hate crime, give me a break. Where's all that coming from? Southern Poverty Law Center, who's headed by Morris Dees, who, according to court, his divorce records is a child molester, and who's rakes in billions of dollars, and now has set up these fusion centers where they're telling your law enforcement people, look out for people who talk about the Constitution. Look out for people who talk about the Second Amendment. They're potential terrorists. And now that's weaned its way into our society. It's dangerous, folks. Hey, you cannot change people's thinking. If people are hateful, that's just the way they are. What you can control is their activities. Somebody hits somebody, somebody beats somebody, somebody drags somebody behind a truck, prosecute the heck out of them. But you can't, once you go down and you start having hate crimes, oh, he thought bad things about somebody, that's a slippery slope. Where are you going to stop? Slide. We need to stop. If we want to have world peace, we got to stop being the leading arms merchant of the world. Okay? We send weapons to everybody and then tell them, don't fight, don't fight. All right? And again, that's the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about that has then got penetrated by the Nazis that we brought in under Operation Paperclip. Slide. Pharmaceutical reform. Okay? You realize colleges, if that are funded by these pharmaceutical companies, and colleges that are funded by your tax money, and they make a drug discovery, they sell it to a pharmaceutical corporation who then patents it, has total control over it, makes millions, and you're the one who funded the research. That's not right. All right. You know a lot about the drug. Slide. Again, I've already mentioned Codex Alimentarius. Tell them we do not want that. Tell them in a free country you should be able to get whatever the heck you want. It's your lookout, all right? And if there's going to be a federal drug administration, they should be fair and impartial, and there should not even be a hint of conflict of interest, and they should actually look at all the drugs, all the treatments, unless they can prove there's something wrong with it, then people ought to be free to do something about it. And even then, there ought to just be warnings. If you want to screw yourself up with some goofy thing, that's your right. Slide. Now, again, back to the Obama birth certificate thing. This really is not about Obama. It's not about the birth certificate. It's not about race. It's not about religion. It's this simple. It's about the Constitution. Okay? Are we a nation of laws, or are we a lawless nation? Well, obviously, we're a lawless nation. Whoever gets in charge can say, this is the way it is, and that's the way it is. Laws are violated up and down the thing, and nobody says anything. Slide. Of course, it's not fascism when we do it. And I put both of them on there so you can think. After one
Fair and balanced.
Slide.
You don't have a libertarian up there.
Well, see, that's why the libertarians are never going to get elected to anything, because unlike the other two who say, well, the other side's full-blooded, and I've got the answer. The libertarians say, well, I don't know if I got the answer, but everybody's their own way. It's all be free. You know, nobody's gonna elect somebody like that, although I'm all for it. Just remember, anything that's not voluntary is tyranny. And you may not care about that for yourself, but start thinking about your children and your grandchildren. What kind of country are you going to grow up in? I remember when I was hurrying to go try to visit my wife when I was in Lubbock and she was in Dallas teaching. I'd get a plane ticket and I'd go run to the airport and I'd get there 5 minutes before the flight took off. And I'd run through the airport looking like O.J. Simpson jumping over suitcases. I'd run up the steps and get on the airplane and just got buckled in good. We'd take off. And I'd land and there'd be my sweetheart standing there waiting on me, you know. That was flying. That's the way to go. Can't do that anymore. What are your children, grandchildren going to think when they go out and have to shuck off their clothes and take off their shoes and have people pat them down and search through their little backpacks and everything, and they don't know any different. They don't understand what it's like to live in the free republic. But I do, and that's why I get excited about this, and that's why you people should too. Thank you very much.
Jim, one thing,